All right, we're live. I'm so
I
excited.
am so excited and just grateful to be here with you today and all of your viewers.
Yeah, so I'm gonna just introduce you, get us started, and then we'll just jump into conversation because we have 30 minutes and it goes really, really
Yeah,
fast.
yeah, I hear ya.
Okay, so my name is April Sobral. I am obviously the host of The Positive Effect, which is a weekly show where I get to talk to amazing people about, their life, leadership lessons learned, and just anything that they can really share to help us be more positive. And if you're joining us for the first time, put your name in the chat, where you're coming from. We love to go back and kind of look at, where you're from after and kind of make any comments on what you're sharing. And if you're coming back, welcome back. We love having our return viewers. This is also now available on Spotify and on Apple Podcasts. So you can listen to it and subscribe. And I always say this, share this with your network, because the more people that can find us and get, insights and inspiration from these conversations is always great. It's very positive. So today we have Alyssa Kerbel on the show, and you are the founder of Mini Mioche. Did I say that right?
You did?
Okay, great. So Alyssa, if you want to get started, tell us about your retail journey. Obviously, my network is retail. Most people in retail have been in it 30 years. But tell us about your retail journey, how you got into it, why retail, and then we're going to ask you some more questions.
Okay, I'm going to try and keep this part quick. I won't try and draw out the story. So I actually started out in the wholesale fashion world. So I started out with working for a wholesale fashion agency, selling to retail stores. I have never actually worked a day of retail in my life, which is ironic. I never had a job on a floor of a retail store. I've never worked retail, but I got this job in sales. And I've always loved fashion and accessories and jewelry and all that kind of stuff. And always had a passion for that. So when I was sort of lost and trying to figure out what to do with my life, somebody who was like a kind of guardian angel at that point in my life said, well, you could be really good at sales. You kind of have all the sort of attributes of a salesperson. And what would you like to sell that you would enjoy selling, that you'd be passionate about? And I was like, clothes or shoes or jewelry or purses or anything like that. And so they said, well, you should get a job in that. And I didn't really know about the wholesale fashion world and agencies and how stores got their stuff and, through these kind of like middlemen. And so I just actually started sending out resumes to brands that I liked and wore. And they ended up sending my resume along to an agency who hired me. I went to work for them. I really loved it and loved the customer experience and loved working with the retailers, loved showing the brands, and ended up leaving within about less than 2 years and started my own agency.
Wow.
Because I like to create my own path. That's definitely a thing for me, is like controlling my own destiny. And not being sort of like limited in any way, shape, or form in terms of what I can create. So I started my own agency. It was great. I actually ran that agency for over a decade. But during my time running the agency, I had a baby. And it was about 5 years into my time of owning and operating this wholesale fashion agency. So I had a baby, and I just had this itch after she was born to create something that was mine. Because the thing is, when you're selling to retailers in that environment, you're sort of, kind of at the mercy of the brands. Like, they send you the product, you have to sell it. You don't really have much control over it, like whether you like it or not, whether you think it's going to sell or not. You're kind of like supposed to sell it and meet quotas.
Yeah.
And so I kind of just was like, I would love to see if I could create my own thing that people would love and buy. And I could really, again, create my own path and destiny. Like, I still was, even though I had my own business, I still felt limited because I was accountable to other people. And I was, like, it just didn't feel like it was totally my thing. I didn't have enough control. So I was like, I need to have something that I can control, like the end-to-end thing. And so at the time, this was 14 years ago, I'm doing this a long time. So at the time, I decided, like, I just couldn't find what I wanted to dress my newborn daughter in, which was like really just like super soft, simple, gender neutral basics. At the time, I remember I was like a fan of like the James Purse brand. And I was like, I just want James Purse for baby. But not at that price point, and with organic cotton, and ideally locally and ethically made, and all of those things. And I was like, and then I was like, I should just make it. Like, let's just see if I can do it. And I had no background in design. I had no background in manufacturing. I had no experience in any of that. I'd sold stuff. Like
right.
I was selling other people's stuff. I know, but this is my MO, is like have an idea and then automatically think, who can help me? Who do I know that can help me make this idea a reality? And, you know, when you start to open that way of thinking up, because I think a lot of times we have ideas and then we get stopped and blocked in terms of, you know, I don't know this, I don't know how to do this, I have no education in this, I have no experience in this, blah, 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 blah. Limiting belief.
Yeah.
And it's like, you know, just think about it in terms of possibility. What do you want to create, and who could you engage in that process to help you create it? So that's how I started Mini Mioche, was that I found, you know, people to help me, and I made it happen relatively quickly. Like we started, you know, I think my daughter was born in October. I had the idea for it like in November. I trademarked the brand in December, and then we launched our first collection wholesale. Like that was the model in June. So it was like, I just did it. And it was great. It was like this little small capsule collection of infant basics, newborn to 24 months, just staples, you know, timeless essentials, the softest thing you could like it's like literally was like putting butter on your baby. Like it was like, if you were a baby or anybody, this is what you'd want to wear. And so that's how it started. And I started it with what I knew, which was wholesale, selling business to business. And that was kind of my first foray into my own retail. Well, it was wholesale to retail at that point. Within, I'd say, a year and a half or under 2 years, we launched our e-com site. So we had a website, but not selling direct to consumer online. This is 14 years ago. Like, so it was before, it was back when like brands didn't really sell direct to consumer because they were worried about competing with their customer, essentially. But I saw it was happening more and more, and I felt like I needed to reach more people with it than just the people who could buy it wholesale. So we started our e-com business, and then within, I think, a year of that, or I don't know, I can't remember the exact timeline, but I think it was in 2011 or whatever, we opened a retail store for the brand. And I'd never worked a day of retail. I'd never worked retail, but I was like, I'm going to open a store. What the hell?
But that's so brave of you to do that, because there's probably so many people that do work in retail, much like you worked in wholesale, that are like, oh, I would love to, like, you know, start my own brand, but like don't know how to do it, or just like don't have the courage to do it, because it's a lot of responsibility to do that.
Yeah, it's super scary. It's super scary. And everybody told me I was crazy. They were like, oh my God, you're going to open a store. Do you know what it's like to have a store? Like the hours, the HR, the people, the staff, you're going to have to buy it. Da, 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 da. They gave me a million reasons why not to do it. But I was like, yeah, I know, I'm doing it. And the reason why is because I had a vision. Like really, it comes down to your vision, right? Like if you have a clear vision for what you're wanting to create, and you see a path to getting there through whatever vessel or whatever it is. For me, I could see that I needed a physical presence where I could really hit people with what it was I was trying to create in one place. So wholesaling it didn't work because people would buy it and they would buy a little bit of this and a little bit of that and smatter it into their store with other stuff. And so it didn't stand out. It didn't have the presence that my message behind it. Like I didn't say this before, but our brand is all like made ethically and sustainably in Toronto. So we knit all of our fabric here using GOTS certified organic cotton. It's all dyed and finished here. It's cut, sewn. Everything's done from start to finish, like 20 minutes, 25 minutes from where I'm sitting. So like this is 14 years ago when people didn't really do that. And it wasn't like organic cotton and sustainable fabrics and like, you know, in retrospect, is like a bit ahead of the curve, you know, on that front. And it was like, I needed to be able to get that message out there. So like if you went, yes, it was on the hang tag and blah, 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 but only if you picked up like a solid black t-shirt. And like, if you weren't looking for a solid black t-shirt for your baby, which I was, then you might not know. And it's like, you need to hit your people with the message. And so to me, the store was that vessel. The store was like the way to hit people with the brand and the product and the messaging so clearly. And you know, when you believe in something and you see a vision, then you have to like block out the noise and the naysayers and all the people who are going to tell you why you're nuts. Block it out.
Yeah, I mean, I can relate to that just from selling other people's brand and managing brands my whole life, of being in bricks and mortar, that there is nothing like the customer walking into the door and having that full brand experience. and getting to showcase everything. So, but you were really ahead of your time doing what you did 14 years ago. Like seriously, with the sustainability, with the locally sourced, with the direct to consumer, you know?
Yeah, it's interesting because I think that it really went back to what do I care about and what do I think other people will care about, and what would set it apart.
Right.
So when you're creating something, it's like, yeah, there's other stuff. There's always going to be other stuff in the market. Everything's been done on some level, but it's always to me about like, how do you make whatever's out there better? And so for me at the time, it was like, okay, there are basics brands out there for kids. A lot of them were like brands. I won't mention the brands, but they were like established adult brands that had basics for kids that were expensive. And I didn't really want to spend that much money. Like I was willing to spend more, but like I had a threshold. So I was like, okay, I want to be under that threshold. And like, I think if I could do it with like sustainable fabrics, no one was really doing that. I was selling a brand at the time with my wholesale agency that was in like organic cotton and in modal and using bamboo. And I was selling that and it was new. This is almost 15 years ago. And people were really responding to it. And it was like, it made selling the brand so easy because there was like this story. I wasn't just like this t-shirt, this. It was like, this is how it's made. This is the type of fabric. This is why it matters. This is how it impacts the environment. And people were like, really? And then all of a sudden this t-shirt that was just a t-shirt, they were like, I have to have that t-shirt. You know what I mean? So it was like, that kind of resonance of like, that's a good point of difference. And then just for me, like, I mean, making things in a way that feels good. So like doing it with people that, I know are treated well. I wanted to be able to go to factories and have control over that process. There were a lot of factors that felt good about doing it that way. But also starting out small and bootstrapping, knowing that like to do it any other way, like offshore, high minimums. I didn't have the money, honestly, and I didn't want to take on that inventory. So this was a way to baby step it too.
And I love what you said about like not taking like all the negatives and like why everything can't work. I mean, I had no idea how to create an online course like 7 years ago, but I was like, I said, okay, how do I need to figure this out? Who can help me? And then people just started kind of presenting themselves in my path, and like becoming mentors of me. And it's really fascinating how that happens. What are some secrets to your success, like daily habits? Because, people that are successful, have these daily habits or routines or things that they incorporate into their life to help them be positive, optimistic, solution driven. Like, what are some habits or things that you can share that you think have made you, helped you be successful?
So I think that your morning routine is really, really key. And I'm not a morning person. I don't like getting up early. I struggle hard to get up early. So that's been a challenge for me. But I've also recognized the importance of starting my day on the right foot. Very, very important. Okay. So, and my morning routine changes depending on where I'm at. Some people have morning routines that they just do the same thing every morning forever, and that's what works for them. I find my morning routine changes depending on how busy I am, what's going on in my world, what's going on with my family, if I'm traveling, if I'm there. It's like, so it can't be like too regimented for me. It needs to be flow and fluid. So I don't beat myself up if I don't do it certain ways. The two biggest things for me that I try to always do though, is I try to start my morning with a meditation. It's a big one for me. It's like grounding myself in, where I'm at and what I want to create in the day, how I want to show up, and just like what's going on in my body, how I'm feeling, just recognizing that, connecting with my body in the present moment. And then the second thing is like just a gratitude practice. So I really, I know so many people talk about gratitude and like we hear so much about it, but I have this practice now that I write down like 3 to 5 things I'm grateful for and why, to connect emotion to it. Ooh. And I think that's a really amazing practice because, there is a reason it's that gratitude works. It really connects you to like, and it makes you realize what's going well in your world. And I think a lot of times as leaders, as entrepreneurs, we can get really caught up in all the stuff that's not going well, on all the fires that we're putting out and all the things. And, it's very, very easy to get negative, to spiral out, to be in that, stress headspace, that anxiety, and then be in that energy. And that the best way for me to get out of that energy is to meditate and to focus on what's good, to focus on what's going well, and to put myself in that feeling of that as much as possible. That is like the shift for me. And if I can do that in the morning, those two things. And then the third one for me is like any kind of music and movement. I love to dance. I love music. So if I'm getting ready, I'm having a shower, I'm putting on tunes and I'm like moving and grooving, like while I'm getting ready in the morning, like putting on my makeup or having a shower. I got tunes blasting, I'm dancing in the shower. Like that's an energy shifter.
Right. I love that. I have a necklace with gratitude on it.
There you go.
It reminds me every day to be grateful. And, you know, as a new entrepreneur, I've been an entrepreneur 4 years now, but the rest of my life was in corporate, right? So I really appreciate now meditation. And I learned meditation like a long time ago because I was stressed out and I had to figure out how to be less stressed. But I say all the time now to people when I'm speaking to them, that was the middle pillar in my book, Create, is all about what you think about comes about. And so, you know, we put a lot of effort into how we look every day, our bodies, working out, what we wear. But like, just because people can't see our mind doesn't mean to say we shouldn't put the same effort in it, right? Like that is the work that you do when you do the meditation. This is it.
Yeah, it's the most important work, in my opinion.
Yeah. So when you talked a little bit about leadership. So what does leadership mean to you? Because, you know, I am a leadership coach. I think that leadership is everything. I think everything starts with leadership. I can tell you that from just managing small teams, big teams. How do you view leadership?
I guess I view leadership as the idea of, like, for me, because I never really thought of myself as like a business leader. Okay. That's not a thing I have, right? Like and I never worked for companies. Like I've always worked for myself. So I've never really had the experience of being in an environment where I like was led really well and learned from that. So I've had to kind of figure a lot of it out for myself. And I've always kind of felt like in my mind, I'm not that good at it. But what I realized over the years, I think, is that being a good leader is about, you know, creating a vision or like creating something that other people want to be a part of and being able to like share and articulate that. And then having them, like helping them, finding those people that want to be a part of it and then leading them down that path effectively, seeing ideally what are their attributes, what are their gifts, where can they best contribute, and in recognizing that, then being able to really like sort of help them leverage that skill set, you know, in a way that ideally makes the world a better place, makes them better people, makes you a better person. Like to me, I guess that's kind of the ideal definition of leadership. And so I think in that definition, you don't have to have any formal training. You just have to care.
Be a good person.
Be a good person and care about other people. And yeah. And
it's so funny that you say that, because I say all the time, because, you know, I formally train leaders, but I say a lot of entrepreneurs are like, oh, I'm not a leader. I'm like, yes, you are. You lead your business. Or, you know, like somebody just not even in a management role, I would say, because people think, oh, manager, and then I'm a leader. But like, you could be a leader in your community. You could be leading.
Anyone can be a leader.
Anybody could be.
Your child can be. You know, right. Like it's not experience.
No, it's not. I say it's not a title as well. I really do think it's just like, be a good person and care about people.
That's it.
I was like listening to Howard Schultz's YouTube. He's been brought back again as the CEO for Starbucks. I'm like,
I saw.
He has to come back. And I was watching his address yesterday, and it was all about compassion for people, like that interaction, that third place. That's what really counts, and that's what leadership is. And so I think right now, just having a positive perspective and a positive influence on anybody that you're interacting with and shifting that energy. I'm a big believer, we were talking a bit about energy before, but I'm a big believer in energy and how you uplift people. And then that could be one shift perspective in somebody's mind that you could really shape their day in a different way. Don't you agree?
The tiniest thing.
Yeah, 100%. So who inspires you, Alyssa? Like, you're like this mover and shaker, and you got a business and lots of stuff going on, but who inspires you every day?
It's funny. Like, I mean, I have a lot of people in my world who are extremely inspiring people. But I have to say that when I look at like when it comes to a business leader, somebody who I think has like done such incredible things in such an incredible way, it's Sarah Blakely for me.
Mm-hmm.
And like I love following her. I love her authenticity. I love her realness. I love that she's like stayed true to herself. I think she's that person. She cares a ton. She's a good person. She hasn't let a lot of, I don't know. To me, there aren't that many people at that level who are like that.
Yeah. 100%.
It's so impressive to me. So yeah, I look to her for inspiration a lot. I've never met, I'd like to meet you, Sarah. If you happen to watch this, one day you and I will meet.
Tag her in my feed. You never know. Listen.
You never know. Someone shared this with Sarah Blakely.
Yeah. So what have you learned over the years that you know now that you wish you knew earlier? I don't know if that's a good question, but I know there's things we learn as we go along that we can pass on. I mean, I get to talk to a lot of university students now. I'm going to Parsons on Saturday to speak to some international global leadership students. And like, they're always like, trying to gain our experience, our knowledge. So what have you learned? What can you share if somebody finds this and really wants to, gain some insights, learning lessons?
So many learnings over the years, so many, because I've been doing I've been an entrepreneur for over 20 years now. So there's been a lot of learnings, but I'd say, I guess maybe the two that stand out for me the most. Okay. So one is the importance of doing the self-development work. And we chatted a little bit about this before we jumped live, but like, we're both kind of very much of this, mindset of like, the more you know about yourself, the better you can show up in the world and show up for other people, the better you can lead. And I think that's a big thing that a lot of entrepreneurs and corporate executives overlook. It's not easy work. That's the reality, right? Yeah. Like, it's not easy work, but it is the most beautiful and valuable work. And the more you know about yourself, the more you can do in the world that's how I feel. And so over the years I've always been open to things, and I've done landmark and strategic coach and tons of workshops, and I'm part of mastermind groups, and I'm always open to just like learning about me, about humanity, about people, not about business necessarily. That's important too, but it's mostly just learning about myself and why I'm the way I am, what my blind spots are, why I show up the way I show up. Sometimes that makes you, I think, that's the thing that contributes to success that I would recommend. Like, the more you can do, the better you're going to be. And then the second thing is, in doing that, you can really start to, and this goes back to meditation and grounding yourself in your body, but like trusting yourself, because I think what has happened for me along the years is like the self-doubt and the not knowing, like, I don't know how to do this. I don't know. I've never done this before. Seeking out advice constantly, seeking out validation constantly. Like, should I do this? Ask 10 people, get 10 different opinions. It's like, I actually know a lot more than I think I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Ultimately, only I know some of the answers, because only I know what's right for me, my business, my team, like what I want. And then I guess the third thing just on top of that is the clearer you can be about what it is you're striving for and why. Why you want that thing. What does it actually mean to you? What is it behind the thing? If you can have clarity and conviction and you kind of know why you're doing something, then the universe aligns to support you. Yeah. I truly believe that. It just does. It happens, or you don't even have to try. But it's when we're kind of misaligned that we tend to be we think we know what we want and we're moving, but ultimately there's a misalignment, and that's where things can start to go off the rails. It all comes back to the self-work, though.
I love that you said that about misalignment. Like, when I meet people now, I'm just like, we are in alignment with what we're doing and trying to build together. To me, that's so important. And I just remember like leading large teams and being like, how do I get all these people aligned to go in the same direction? And that's so important. And you have to work on yourself. I mean, I was lucky. I had American hippies as parents, and my mom would send me all those Hay House, Louise Hay self-help books when I was in my late 20s. I would push it at my kids, right? I remember having this conversation with my daughter who's 24 now, but when she was 19, and she said, what are you passionate about? And I said, learning. And she's like, no, but there's got to be something else. And I was like, because she's like, I know you like learning because you coach and you teach and you lead all day, but that's work, right? And I was like, no, that's me. I get to get up every day and do what I love, and what I love is to learn. And I have a girlfriend in Toronto, and we were like, we're just hashtag learning junkies. That's like our life. But you know what? It makes us better people. So I love that you shared that 100%. You have to have a self-learning block of time in your week where you're doing something for yourself and expanding your mind, your experience, your knowledge, whatever that is, right?
And it doesn't even have to be like, for me, I'll quite often like throw on a podcast as I'm getting ready in the morning or while I'm walking the dog. Like, it's like, I'm always listening to something that is inspiring and that is, you know, opening me up. And I'm in groups with people. Like, it's also who you surround yourself with, right? Like you attract people that are of this mindset. You feed off of each other and your energy feeds off of each other, and you push each other, open things up. So it's like, the more you expand and are open to this, and the more you open yourself up to others who are in this world, the more, you know, it all starts to flow very beautifully.
Yeah, I love that.
And it's funny, I'm the same with my kids with all this stuff, and I do drive them a little nuts, I know. But the interesting thing is that, like, I think our generation is very different in that, like, our parents' generation and our parents' generation, they didn't like have access to a lot of, I mean, some of them did, depending on where they came from in their lifestyle, but not in the same way that it is now, right? So it's like, this is where the shift is happening. Like, we're actually now learning it and bringing it to our kids. They're growing up with it. Like, that's different, you know?
Like, there's meditation and earthing classes in schools now where kids
my daughter goes to sleep with a meditation every night. Like, you know, yeah, like they're you know, they're immersed in it.
So I know it's like this, I said this show goes really, really fast, and it is, because we're coming up on time. But there's two questions I want to ask you, because I really want to get this to share this with our audience. So number one, what advice would you give someone thinking about starting a retail brand like you? I know so many people that have worked for retailers that are out of work right now just because of circumstances of COVID, and they're trying to figure out what to do. And they probably would be really good at it, but it's just that fearful, how do I do it? So what advice would you give somebody thinking about it?
So I think the biggest thing is it goes back to, like, what do you want to create and why? What problem are you solving for yourself or for others, right? Like, any successful brand sort of has, I think, something that they've got a mission behind it, and it's generally related to a problem that they're solving for themselves that ultimately solves problems for other people. And when you look at any brand that's been super successful, you will see that that's the case.
Right. 100%.
And it doesn't have to be overly complex. It's just like taking the time to think about, like, what would you want to create and why? Like, what's not existing in the world that you can see there's, like, and it doesn't mean that it doesn't have to exist. It just is, like, again, making it something better. It can already exist, but how could you elevate it? And then making sure that you're going back to, like, why do you want to do this? And what's the story behind this, whatever you're doing? Because there's a book called Building a Story Brand that I read years ago, and it's a really great marketing book. And I think a lot of people want to create something, but then they fall short on the marketing and selling of the thing. And it's a really good book around just, like, at the end of the day, what gets people buying is an emotional connection. And usually that relates to story. Like, so sharing the story, just like, this is what it is and this is why it exists. And it doesn't have to be complex. But those are, like, the two kind of main foundational pieces to me. It's like thinking about what problem you're solving, why you want to do this, and then sharing that in the world in a really, like, clear and uncomplicated way with your passion behind it. There's a good chance it's going to work.
Yeah. Oh, that's great advice. And then just reaching out to people that have done it, I think, is always a good thing, right?
Ask for help. Ask for help. Ask for help. Do not have any pride. Ask for help. I ask for help every single day. I have zero problems asking for help.
Yeah, I learned that being an entrepreneur. Okay, my last question then. So in your bio, right, that was in the post, so I didn't because we don't have a lot of time to talk, so I don't want to take up time with sharing your bio. It's actually in this post and it will be in the podcast notes. But you talk about spreading kindness and that you're very passionate about this. And I was on your website and I saw that Humankind collection, right? Which is beautiful, by the way. So how do you spread kindness and how can we all be kinder in the world?
Honestly, it starts with kindness to self. We're meanest to ourselves. That's the biggest thing. We're meanest to ourselves. We beat ourselves up all day long. We tell each other, like we tell ourselves, sorry, why we can't do things. Why, like we'll say like, oh, I'm going to do this tomorrow. And then we don't do it. And they're like, oh, you suck. You were going to do that. You didn't. And like, we don't even realize it. But really, I think the biggest thing is kindness to self. And then when you start to like be able to see that, you can actually be kind to others and kind to the planet, and it all feeds off of each other, and it doesn't have to be complicated, but it's actually just like this idea of taking a little bit of time each day to, you know, show up for yourself and be grateful for, you know, who you're showing up for, what you've accomplished that day, focusing on the good, being grateful, like all of those things. And to me, that then, you know, that blossoms and blossoms and blossoms. And so, you know, that's sort of the main premise around, I mean, I have this thing called Kind Human Club that's around all kind to self, kind to others, kind to the planet. That's sort of like what it stands for. And that's kind of what our brand stands for. Like we want to be kind to ourselves. We want to be kind to our colleagues, our team members, our customers, the people who partner with us. And we want to be kind to the planet in the way we operate our business, our sustainability factors, and, you know, our operations and our local production and all of those things. So it's an ethos. And it's like the idea that, you know, kindness truly is magic. Like you never know the smallest little thing that you can do for yourself or for somebody else that can shift everything in their world. And I believe that. I've experienced it personally. Very passionate about it.
Oh no, I love that. I love that. We could do a whole show on just being kind. Like seriously, I love it. Because I think that's really key. I mean, my whole thing is just, I want everybody to feel valued. You know, like that when I led teams and I teach, it's always about feeling valued. And, you know, kindness goes a long way. You know, it's funny. It's like, you know, I kind of feel like on performance measures in corporate companies, they kind of need to have kindness as a box and like they tick it off. You are or you're not, as opposed to just like drive for results. You know, like there's just these different attributes that I think need to come forward more in the corporate world. And I'm excited because I think the shift, I think it's necessary and I think everybody's ready for it.
Yeah, it's happening. It's happening for sure. And actually the word that came into my mind when you were talking about that is appreciation. Everyone, like at the end of the day, wants to feel appreciated. So that's appreciation for ourselves and like who we are. And, you know, in this world, like we're all like, I truly believe like a beautiful miracle. And we all have value and we all have a special gift, like every person on the planet, and appreciation for others and their gifts and their value. Like it's just like a giant appreciation.
Yeah, it's like a ripple of energy.
Yeah.
It's a ripple of energy that goes out, right? So, and if we could all spend more time in that space and that energy, gosh, how the planet would be a better place. It just would. So, thank you so much. Oh, I could stay talking to you all day, but I really appreciate this conversation. There's lots of great comments in the feed. So thank you so much, Alyssa. Really appreciate having you on the show.
My pleasure. It was fun. I loved our conversation. So thank you for having me. I'm honored, humbled, and very, very grateful.
And I am going to tag Sarah Bakley in the post so that she sees it.
Yes.
So that wraps up another week of The Positive Effect. Again, if you find this in your feed, I'm going to ask you to share it, tag somebody who can be inspired from this amazing conversation. Alyssa, you're great. And I am going to go and buy now one of those sweatshirts for my nephew.
Join the club.
Yeah, and spread the kindness. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.